Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52.1 to make a statement on a matter of general topical concern, namely the 8th International Parliamentarians Conference on the implementation of the Program of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development, ICPD, that was held in Oslo, Norway from 10th April to 12th April 2024. Mr. Speaker, parliamentarians from across the globe attended the conference, which was held as the world commemorated the 30th anniversary of the adoption of the ICPD Program of Action. Discussions centered around the challenges encountered and opportunities presented in championing sexual and reproductive health and rights. Mr. Speaker, parliamentarians who attended the conference acknowledged the progress made in advancing sexual and reproductive health and rights, despite the setbacks encountered due to societal challenges, the COVID-19 pandemic, and other global crises. Emphasis was placed on the critical role of parliamentarians in championing and effecting change towards universal access to sexual and reproductive health services, particularly for marginalized groups like women, girls, and those affected by crisis, as well as the elimination of gender-based violence and harmful practices. Mr. Speaker, the parliamentarians also emphasized the need to universally uphold human rights, expressing concern over the global backlash against agendas on sexual and reproductive health and rights. The matter of the disproportionate impact of the climate crisis on vulnerable populations, particularly women and girls, was also discussed. Mr. Speaker, the parliamentarians pledged that moving forward, they would work towards people-centered policies, data-driven solutions, and harness digital technology to strengthen health systems and ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health services. The parliamentarians also committed to advocating for increased funding for sexual and reproductive health and rights programs and international development assistance in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, aiming to shape a resilient and inclusive post-2030 agenda. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the conference reaffirmed parliamentarians' commitment to advancing sexual and reproductive health and rights, gender equality, and sustainable development globally, recognizing the interconnectedness of these goals in shaping a resilient and equitable future for all. I thank you.
Senator Chirange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Statement on issue of general topical concern on the outstanding performance of our athletes at the Boston Marathon yesterday, Monday. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52.1 to make a statement on issue of general topical concern and national importance, namely the outstanding performance of our athletes at the Boston Marathon held on Monday, 15 April 2024. That is yesterday, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, once again, our athletes have brought immense pride to our country, giving us by the outstanding performance at the Boston Marathon. Our female athletes dominated the event, securing all top positions on the podium, while their male counterparts also demonstrated exceptional prowess. Our athletes displayed extraordinary resilience to emerge victorious in the fierce competition marathon. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the women's marathon, Ellen Obiri led the podium sweep by clocking 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 37 seconds. Followed closely, I would have expected applaud for all the women in there, followed closely by Sharon Lokedi in under 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 45 seconds. And of course, our very own, she is almost 45 years old, Mr. Speaker, sir, a mother and a model, Edna Kiplagat, secured third position with a time of 2 hours, 23 minutes, and 21 seconds. In the men's marathon, Evans Chebet, a two-time defending champion, claimed the third place with a time of 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 22 seconds, Mr. Speaker, sir. In a race won by Ethiopia's Sisei Lema, with a time of 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 17, Mr. Speaker, if Kelvin Kiptum, may his soul rest in peace, he would have won this marathon under 2 hours. While John Korir and Albert Korir, both representing Kenya, achieved 4th and 5th position respectively. I extend on behalf of this House our warmest congratulations. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I continue to urge this esteemed House to accord our athletes, sportsmen and women a chance to address the Senate, and I think the majority leader and minority leader have made a voice on this. Such an opportunity would demonstrate our appreciation for their remarkable achievements in the international stage by flying our flag high always, and also motivating them to continue bringing honor to our nation. Mr. Speaker, sir, furthermore, I call upon the Ministry of Sports, Athletics Kenya, and National Olympics Committee of Kenya, NOC, in collaboration with Beijing Sports Competition and International Sports Exchange Center, to provide a comprehensive update on the investigation into concerning an incident during the Beijing half marathon. In this incident, it involved our athletes ushering a Chinese marathoner to win a race. And people are making comments that maybe Kenyans are starting to pay the loan by allowing them to win. This, among other issues, Mr. Speaker, sir, such as doping, fixing athletics and sports, tarnish our nation's repute internationally and undermine the principles of fair play and transparency in sportsmanship and kills the spirit of competition. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I urge our athletes, sportsmen and women, when they are winning, they should win. When they are losing, they should lose, Mr. Speaker. And what we saw in Beijing half marathon is very unfortunate, where they were supposed to win the 3, but because they wanted a Chinese to win the race, they retreated back. And I think, Mr. Speaker, we must have a comprehensive report on the same. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, through you, I ask the Labour Committee led by my brother, Senator Reverend Julius Murkot, the Senator of West Pokot, Chairman, to look into this issue and update the House. I also plead with the Anti-Doping Agency to intensify its efforts to root out unscrupulous agents and coaches who engage in doping and match fixing, therefore jeopardizing the careers of our sportsmen and women and the reputation of our Kenyan sports. I wish to congratulate and call upon, Mr. Speaker, the Athletics Kenya, the sports, that is the sports of Kenya, that is Football Federation of Kenya, and other sports federation, Mr. Speaker, in this spirit, to hold election as directed by the courts, Mr. Speaker, and ensure regular elections to allow efficiency in running this, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I think that is important. I wish to congratulate our athletes for the exceptional performance at the Boston Marathon and other major marathons and competition. I wish them well as they prepare to represent our nation at the upcoming Olympics in Paris, France, and assure them of our unwavering commitment and support and advocating for their welfare and win us more goals. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Chute. The statement is dropped. Senator Mundigi. That statement is dropped. Senator Siango. That statement is dropped. Senator Ledama Olekina. That statement is dropped. Next order, clerk. Now, honorable senators, we'll allow 15 minutes for intervention on the statements that have been sought. We'll start with the Honorable Senator Wambua.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to make 2 observations on the statement as read by the Chairman of Education. Mr. Speaker, the first comment is on the issue of the TSC and the payment of hardship allowance to teachers in Kilifi and Taita Taveta counties. The Speaker, I just want to draw the attention of the committee to the fact that this problem is a lot more widespread than just in Kilifi and in Taita Taveta. And the Speaker, you can restrain Senator Cherargei is distracting the chair. So, Mr. Speaker, this matter is a lot more widespread than would be found in Kilifi and Taita Taveta. I do believe that a lot of senators seated in this chamber today have the same problem with TSC. I know there is a big problem with TSC in Laikipia, that I know for a fact, on the discrimination on which teachers should earn hardship allowance and which teachers should not. So, Speaker, I have a big problem in Kitui County, and I know the same could be said by a lot of other senators here. Mr. Speaker, the committee should find time and reason to interrogate the synergy, if it does exist, between government ministries, state departments, and independent constitutional commissions. Why do I say this? I say this, Mr. Speaker, because this House has passed resolutions on 33 counties that have wards which have been declared as marginalized. I'll give the example of Kitui County. In Kitui County, we have 17 wards that have been declared as marginalized by CRA, and the House has passed that declaration. Mr. Speaker, you will find that in those 17 wards, then it should follow automatically that teachers in those wards that are marginalized should benefit from hardship allowances. But what will happen is that in those wards, you will realize there are teachers there who are not benefiting from hardship allowance. Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Senator Kinyua?
Mr. Speaker, I want to concur with what Senator Wambua is saying, but the only thing I want to ask, Mr. Speaker, for purpose of clarity...
What is your point of order?
Yes.
And start by quoting the standing order.
Yes. 105. We are talking about, I'm asking whether he's talking about wards or sub-location, Mr. Speaker, because CRA was very clear it was locations, not wards.
So is that a point of information or... Proceed, Senator.
I'll proceed, Mr. Speaker. Those sublocations are found in wards, my good friend. And I'm very sure the chair understands what I'm talking about. So that synergy needs to be established so that one arm of government is not conferring a benefit to employees in their department, and another arm of government is stripping employees of benefits from the same region. The second issue on that statement is the issue of the ECD scheme of service. The Speaker, that is a matter that this House must now pronounce itself on, and pronounce itself very, very loudly. The Speaker, the scheme of service for ECD teachers, a resolution was passed in this House that there is a standard scheme of service that should be rolled out by all the counties, so that you don't have one county that is paying ECD teachers 10,000 shillings a month through M-Pesa, and there is another county that is paying ECD teachers 50,000 shillings through a payroll system. The Speaker, the scheme of service for ECD teachers is not something that will be implemented at the whim of a sitting governor. If we don't have that synergy, if we don't have that clarity, Mr. Speaker, what will happen is that there is a reason why ECD is a devolved function. It is so that then children have a strong base on education right from childhood. If we don't have a scheme of service for teachers in ECD classrooms running across all the counties, there will be serious discrimination. As a Speaker, the purposes for devolving ECD then will be beaten. So the committee, I would ask Mr. Speaker, that we must find a way of ensuring that the ECD scheme of service is rolled out uniformly across the counties. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Mungatana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to make a comment on the statement by the Honorable Cherargei. Mr. Speaker, I was coming from my house, and I then watched the TV, and there is a section where they bring trending news, what Kenyans have been saying. And Mr. Speaker, the focus was on what happened during that marathon, in which, Mr. Speaker, of all countries, a Chinese beats Kenya. Mr. Speaker, it didn't make any sense to me. A Chinese beating Kenya. How on earth, Mr. Speaker, does that happen? And Mr. Speaker, when I listened to the conversation, Mr. Speaker, it emerged that Kenyans were making very serious observations, including the fact that there was, in the past, match fixing. Now it is emerging a new trend, race fixing. And Mr. Speaker, the country's integrity was being discussed online, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what the Honorable Senator Cherargei has said today, that investigations must be carried. I want to use the floor of this House, Mr. Speaker, to say that Kenya has obtained a special space in Africa, where I sit, Mr. Speaker, in Pan-African Parliament. Every time people expect us to be athletic, even, Mr. Speaker, when they look at me, I am a disappointment because I don't look as tall and as athletic as I should. But they have this image of how a Kenyan should be. So, Mr. Speaker, we have obtained a special place in the continent and in the world because of how we have projected athletics in Kenya and the medals we have won. So, Mr. Speaker, we are jeopardizing the good name of Kenya. And Mr. Speaker, some of the reasons that were being given is that, oh, this Chinese is my friend, so I was letting him to pass. Mr. Speaker, we have discussed here and said they will be given some incentives, tax-free something when they come home. We will honor these athletes. Why on earth would someone sell the good name of our country? Because of, these are the Judas Iscariots, Mr. Speaker, who sold the Lord Jesus Christ for pieces of silver. Mr. Speaker, they are selling this country for pieces of silver. And it is very serious, Mr. Speaker. So we want this investigation in support of this statement, Mr. Speaker, not just to be carried out in a casual manner. There should be serious investigation by Athletics Kenya, and they should involve state agencies that are competent in that area so that we can take the blame to where it belongs, and the people who are involved in this scam, Mr. Speaker, they must be punished, because we cannot sacrifice the name of our country because some people want to get a few pieces of silver. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak. Allow me to contribute to the statement by Senator Gloria Orwoba. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Millie Odhiambo and myself also attended the ICPD, that is the International Conference on Population and Development, that was held in Oslo, courtesy of a parliamentary caucus, the East and Southern Africa Parliamentary Caucus. That is a caucus of members of parliament who have an interest in addressing matters relating to sexual reproductive health issues. In addition to what Senator Gloria has provided or presented to the House, I wish to indicate that I will share a copy of a declaration that was made on the last day of this conference. Mr. Speaker, one issue that I would want to highlight in this matter is an issue we discussed as parliamentarians from Eastern and Southern Africa. We discussed the issue of discussing prostate cancer as one of the sexual reproductive issues that is becoming problematic in our region. Mr. Speaker, I would want to raise this issue and to call to the attention of all our members that matters relating to sexual reproductive health affect families and actually affect development in this country. I wish to ask that both male and female members of parliament and senators should take greater interest in this issue. Mr. Speaker, if you read the Kenyan Health Demographic Survey, you'll find very disturbing statistics, including very high teen pregnancies, girls dropping out of school, young men actually having fertility problems because they are not able to access proper sexual reproductive health services, including the most important, which is comprehensive sex education that would be able to avert a number of the things that are happening. I raise this to ask that the matter of sexual reproductive health be treated as very crucial to this country and not be treated as an issue for women and an issue that should be relegated to the back of any discussion. So I'm calling on all of us, and I will table the declaration that we had, that beyond that declaration, let us take an interest in matters relating to sexual reproductive health in Kenya and see how we can help our young men, our young women, and particularly adolescent girls who are becoming casualties because we are not putting in place the necessary policies and laws to support them. I support Mr. Speaker.
Senator Aaron, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to join my colleagues who are expressing their views on various statements that have been shared. I'm particularly curious about the statement by Senator Samson Cherargei. I join him in congratulating our athletes who did extremely well in keeping up with our tradition, Mr. Speaker, as a powerhouse in athletics, ensuring, and I know the members of parliament from Uganda are still in the house, Madam Speaker. Uganda has been threatening to take this mantle from us, but we are one people, so it's not a big concern to us, Mr. Speaker. But I congratulate Madam Helen Obiri for a stellar performance, Mr. Speaker, in Boston, winning the title, Mr. Speaker, alongside the Edna Kiplagat and the lady who finished second, whose name skips my mind, Mr. Speaker, Sharon, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I am also concerned, just like Senator Mungatana, on that incident in China. But as a sportsman, I know that anything is possible in sports. Therefore, I don't agree with his sentiments, Mr. Speaker, that how can a Chinese beat Kenyans? If Aston Villa can beat Arsenal immediately after Liverpool has lost, when you're supposed to be gunning for the title, then even a Chinese can beat a Kenyan, Mr. Speaker. Nothing is impossible in sports, Madam Speaker. Therefore, Senator Mungatana, many odd things happen in sports many times. Therefore, it's not necessarily the case that those Kenyans that were defeated by the Chinese, Mr. Speaker, might have been compromised. But it would be important, just for the record, Mr. Speaker, that Madam Speaker, that the race organizers updates the world, because everybody is concerned whether this was genuine, because it appeared to me from the final sprints of that particular race, Madam Speaker, as if these were the pace setters, Madam Speaker. But it is for the race organizers to let us as a country and the world of sports to know what really happened. Finally, Madam Speaker, is to agree with Senator Cherargei that we need elections in athletics Kenya as soon as yesterday, the same way the courts directed, Madam Speaker. Kenya is preparing to participate in the 2024 Paris Olympics, Madam Speaker. And there is a whole lot of confusion. And I'd wish that the Minister for Sports, C.S. AJAABU, can come out a bit more clear with a roadmap, having a meeting with all these stakeholders, together with the athletes, the officials, sit down and agree on the way forward, Madam Speaker, because sports cannot be relegated to be just another industry that is performing dismally as we watch. I know we have a similar problem that is looming, Madam Speaker, in our football, because there are supposed to be FKF elections. The courts have denied FKF from holding an AGM because there are disagreements amongst the membership. We want to tell CS AJAABU na Mwamba to take the lead in resolving the issues around athletics and sports, because these are extremely important industries that provide employment opportunities to many of our young people, Madam Speaker, who are able to ply their trade by either playing football, Madam Speaker, or running in the various capitals of the world. Therefore, it is my humble request to the Minister to be more vocal, be at the center of this conversation, Mr. Speaker, and update the country so that we are settled and we know that there is a plan, and our athletes and sportsmen, Mr. Speaker, in football, in rugby, in athletics, Mr. Speaker, are not going to waste their talent due to wrangles in the various unions, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Majority Leader. Apparently, the time for comments on statements has lapsed, but I'll add in just maybe 2 or 3. Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. Allow me to speak on the 2 statements. One, the statement by the Chair of Education, and 2, the statement by the Chair of Devolution. I want to echo the sentiments made by the Senator for Kitui, Senator Wambua, on the ECD. Madam Speaker, if there is one thing that I would encourage the Education Committee to handle, is the issue of ECD. I think Senator Wambua has rightly put it, that this House passed a resolution to have a uniform ECD scheme of service, but that is not implemented because different counties have different schemes of service. Madam Speaker, as we are speaking now, in my county, the ECD teachers have been on strike for close to 2 months now. And the issue is in court. Nothing seems to be happening. And looks like the governor and his executive, they are unable to resolve this problem. I think the Senate has to stamp its authority and insist that we need to have a uniform scheme of service for the ECD teachers, and also resolve issues around ECD teachers in our counties. Madam Speaker, the second issue is on devolution. I am so impressed that the Committee of Devolution went to Trans Nzoia and resolved the challenge we are having between the governor of Trans Nzoia and the deputy governor. I think the same spirit must be escalated to all other counties which are facing similar challenges. And there are many. So the Committee of Devolution, I think you are like the front end of the Senate. It is a committee that handles cross-cutting issues for all other committees. And I think when we hear that they are addressing current issues, I think that's the pride of this Senate. But we have other issues, Madam Speaker, which I think the Committee of Devolution can help this House. Mr. Speaker, we were so shocked that a member of this House was attacked by goons hired by a governor in the process of doing his job. That is Senator Okiya Omtata of Busia. Those are things that we don't want to hear. And I want to encourage Senator Bass, who is the chair of Devolution Committee, to pick up on such issues, because this House exists to protect devolution under Article 96 of the Constitution. If we have a scenario where we are either attacked or stopped from doing our job using politics or using goons or scaring us, Mr. Speaker, then we have a problem with devolution in this country. So I want to encourage the Committee of Devolution to do more than they are doing. Mr. Speaker, as we are speaking now, most of our counties have not received their disbursement, January, February, and March. And you know, this late disbursement of money to our counties also brings other issues, including corruption. So we want to encourage the Committee of Devolution, working closely with the Committee of Finance, to find a permanent remedy to this problem. Because we don't want to be told that employees in counties have not been paid, or governors have had to go to the banks to get very expensive loans to pay salaries. Those are things which derail devolution in this country. And I want to encourage the committee to look at real issues affecting devolution in this country and address. Mr. Speaker, there is also a statement by Senator Ugenda on health. Mr. Speaker, this is one area that requires a lot of focus by this House.
You have continuously referred to me as Mr. Speaker.
Sorry.
Please note the change on the chair.
Madam Speaker, you know, we had Senator Speaker Kingi there, so that is still in our mind. Even Majority Leader also did the same thing. So I'm sorry for that. I wanted to say that the health issues in this country, we have done so well as a Senate on matters of agriculture, fake fertilizer. I want to thank the Committee for Agriculture for coming out very strongly in dealing with that problem. But Mr. Speaker, the Senate is nowhere on matters of doctor strike. And yet health is a devolved function. So I want to encourage the Committee for Health, led by Governor Senator Mandago, to wake up and take the lead on the matter of doctor strike in this country. Where is Senate? At least we are saying National Assembly, but health is devolved largely. So I want to encourage my co-chair, Senator Mandago, and the committee members, including Senator Hamida, who is sitting next to me, very strong member of the Health Committee, to take the lead and help in resolving the current problem of the doctor strike. Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you. Senator Chiradike Samson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. And it's good to see you safe and sound. I saw yesterday what was happening in Murang'a, and I was worried about. I hope the office should provide necessary and add more security to you, but I'm happy it was your home in Kigumo. Madam Speaker, many people saw the fracas more than what you contributed for those women, which is more than 5 million, and we congratulate you for organizing. I just want to appeal you to bring peace in Murang'a. Murang'a is one of our best and most loyal counties to Kenya Kwanza administration. So we are keen in what happens, but in future, invite some of us who are tacticians when it comes to such issues, and we'll ensure you are well protected, Madam Speaker. And thank you for doing a good job alongside other leaders, Madam Speaker, and I know you know where the fire is at the moment. Madam Speaker, I just want to make a few comments. One is on the report by the chair, who coincidentally happens to be your senator, Senator Nyutu. On the issue of, I didn't hear something about the teachers' promotion by TAC. We know there was hue and cry, Madam Speaker, where the promotion appeared skewed and disfavored to most of the teachers, Madam Speaker. The interviews were done, promotions were done, but the teachers feel that there was insufficiency in terms of taking in of their interests, Madam Speaker. So I want to ask the committee, and just the way the Agriculture Committee has been proactive on the issue of fertilizer, Madam Speaker, and I'm happy, courtesy of your office, I was able to host them on Tuesday last week. We need also Education Committee to be proactive, to tell the country how many teachers were promoted, what was the criteria, what basis, what is demography, is it across the entire nation, Madam Speaker? Because as per Article 10 on national values and principles of good governance, we must see regional balance. We must balance in terms of promotion, Madam Speaker, and ensure it becomes career progression, Madam Speaker. You know, when you are working for a particular profession and there is no career progress, Madam Speaker, it is unfair. So I want to call upon and ask the TSC also to be transparent and to be fair. And I'm happy I'm seeing a number of committee members of education led by the chair, Madam Speaker. Let TSC be honest Who did they promote? What was the criteria? What did they do it, Madam Speaker? Secondly, Madam Speaker, is on ECD. I remember in the last session, and a number of us are lucky to be here, we had dispensed of the issue of ECD. We want a standardized scheme of service. For example, my ECD teachers in Nandi County are preparing to go on a strike because apparently there has been no harmonization in terms of schemes of service. And you know, ECD teachers play a unique role, Madam Speaker. These are the people when your child just starts works, they don't only teach our children learning, but they also teach them manners. They also assist them in using even toilet facilities, how to be clean, how to tuck in. You can imagine a county, one county is paying 10,000 shillings, another is paying 20,000. We must have an harmonized ECD standard scheme of service, Madam Speaker, so that as a country we can be proud of our ECD teachers. And I think the Education Committee, I agree, but they are taking long. I want to ask them to fast track and give us the status of ECD status implementation in terms of that is going on across the country, Madam Speaker. And therefore, please, the ECD teachers, and then if the Education Committee, in conclusion, Madam Speaker, feel that we need a national legislation. As a Senate and National Assembly and a Parliament, we are ready to do a national legislation that will bring a standardized scheme of service. But we are not trying to encroach on the role that we have in terms of ECD being devolved. And that is why I had my brother, my neighbor, Senator Godfrey Otsotsi, and I want him to advise his colleagues of coalition, because they have been blaming government, national government, for doctor strike. I'm happy what he said, health being devolved, he should be saying it on Sundays and in funeral services, Madam Speaker, so that we are fair in this country. I would in fact request him to go. I can facilitate and organize him to do a press conference after this at the media center and tell the nation, even that we are live, Madam Speaker, and tell the nation health is devolved. And teachers, doctors, Madam Speaker, must be told, because Madam Speaker...
Would you like to be informed by your colleague, Senator Tsotsi?
No, he will misinform and mislead me in equal measure, Madam Speaker. Because what I'm saying, I wish, and I saw the leader of minority in the lower house blaming the president and national government. Yet the coalition members are senators here. They should be informing the likes of Opio and I and the rest of the brigade in the minority side in the lower house that health is devolved. Where is the voice of governors, Madam Speaker? Why is it when we are doing division of revenue for health, governors are very comfortable, they complain and they shout the loudest. But when it comes to strike of health workers, you don't see governors, Madam Speaker. And I'm disappointed by the Health Committee, and I'm happy Senator Amida Kibwana is here, my very good friend, and I thank her, and alongside Senator Richard Onyonga and many members who attended our breakfast meeting of open governance in the morning at Sarova Stanley, that they should have taken an initiative, Madam Speaker, and even address as a Senate, this is a devolved function. What I'm saying, and I'm asking the country. Me, I was a pupillage, and with a lot of respect to my pupil master, Madam Sarah Karuga, I was never paid even a penny. But doctors who are interns, who are not yet qualified doctors, are paid 70,000, Madam Speaker. Yet you as a lawyer, senior lawyer in this country, and SG emeritus of the ruling party, you are never paid as a pupillage. Madam Speaker, if we want to be fair, there is a saying that all animals are equal, but the others who are more equal than the others, Madam Speaker. So if we have to pay interns, doctors, 70,000 or 200,000, we must pay in other professionals, engineers, doctors, even pastors and clergy and priests who are still training to be doctors, Madam Speaker. They must be paid also, so that we are fair in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and that is why I'm saying, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, I know we are pressed for time. The issue of doctors' strike is a devolved function. In fact, what President is doing is offering a service, is just being a gentleman. But the people who should address the issue of doctors is Council of Governors, Madam Speaker. Why are they cowing and hiding now? But when it comes to sharing, they will say, and that is why, Madam Speaker, some of the people are proposing that health be reversed to the national government, Madam Speaker. And therefore, with those very many remarks, Madam Speaker, I thank you, and I support these comments, Madam Speaker.
Senator Osotsi.
I rise on standing order number 105 on statement of fact. Madam Speaker, Senator Cheregei.
You know,
who
if
has
it's on
led-
Senator Cheregei, he's already retired his arguments and resuming his
I had
seat.
placed my
So it's overtaken.
Point of order
You take
earlier.
him up at another opportunity. Because now he's already resumed his seat. You'll have another chance maybe when he goes
Can
off
I
again.
inform him?
No, he does not want to be informed. He must be on the floor. Senator Gloria Oroba will be the last person to speak on this. Very few minutes, Senator, and we move to the next one.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for considering giving me this opportunity. I want to support the Senator Cheregei's statement on the performance of our athletes. Madam Speaker, first of all, let me just say that I was very impressed, and I think this is a clear indication that when we are pushing for affirmative action, you can see some of the results, even in the field of athletics. You've seen how our girls performed, and you know, some people might not really understand when we celebrate Helen Obiri's win. Because if you look at the time that she used for that marathon, 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 37 seconds, I wonder how long Senator Cheregei can take to run that marathon, so that we put it in perspective, Madam Speaker. She did an excellent job, and together with Sharon and Edna, I would like to congratulate them. Madam Speaker, there is a very important message in this statement for Senator Cheregei in terms of calling on Athletics Kenya to investigate and ensure that we don't have unscrupulous agents in that industry. Madam Speaker, what we witnessed, and I thank you, Senator Danson Mungatana, for actually clarifying that. What we witnessed is what we call match fixing. Because there's absolutely no way, based on what I saw with my own 2 eyes, that those Chinese athletes beat the Kenyans. There's no way. That was match fixing outright. And Madam Speaker, you know, we know that the economic times are hard, even for the Chinese and for the Kenyans. But we should not allow this kind of corruption into the field of athletics. Because match fixing, obviously we know that someone was sat down and told, you know, just agree not to win and then we are going to pay you some money. And so the investigation needs to be done. Because if this continues, you are going to see our athletes ensuring that they win the first match to show their powers or whatever. And then they go on the back door and start negotiating with Chinese on how they are going to, you know, allow them to win a marathon. So, Madam Speaker, I think if the Minister for Sports, Honorable AJAABU Namwambu, is listening, the call is very clear that there is some very shoddy business going on behind the scenes, and he needs to literally act on it before it is devolved down to our training centers in the grassroots on the county levels. Because, Madam Speaker, we know, and not to be discriminative, that these Chinese, they are very industrious. We could be here talking about it, and there's a whole operation going on in Nandi, where Senator Cheregei comes from. So, Madam Speaker, congratulations to the girls. And again, I want to say that the issue of unscrupulous agents has to be dealt with, and match fixing needs to be talked about and to be dealt with from the top. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Senators. That's the end of the statement hour and the debate on the statements. I will now reorder the order paper. I'll reorganize the order paper, and I will call order number 17.
Order number 17, the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bills number 55 of 2022, second reading.
Majority Leader.
Not yet. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the National Rating Bill, Senate Bill number 55 of 2022, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, this is a very important piece of legislation. Amongst the many that we have considered as a House, this one particularly, Madam Speaker, apart from the annual division of revenue bill, where we send funds and divide, after dividing of revenue horizontally, Madam Speaker, between the national and the county governments. This is one of those bills, Madam Speaker, that seeks to add more into the pot of our counties, Madam Speaker, so that they may be able to deliver services to the people of Kenya. Madam Speaker, the National Rating Bill was published in the Kenya Gazette Supplement number 185 of 2022 and passed by the National Assembly on 11th of October 2023. Thereafter, the bill was referred to the Senate for consideration. The principal object, Madam Speaker, of this particular bill is basically just to provide a legislative framework for the imposition of property taxes on land and buildings by county governments pursuant to Article number 209(3)(a) of the Constitution. You know, Madam Speaker, many times this House has cast, and I have seen senators, some of you have not raised this issue, where you find in your county, your governor posts a big billboard in Nyamira town and says, I have given people free penalty waiver, I have made land rates are free, and those kind of things. Just trying to do what you'd consider ordinarily to be populist politics, Mr. Speaker, without knowing that they are actually denying revenue, Madam Speaker, that would have been used to develop our counties, Madam Speaker. And it is for absence of a national legislation that guides how this process is done, Madam Speaker, for our counties actually to build and back up their own revenue sources. Therefore, this is one such opportunity for our county governments, Madam Speaker, to think through this. So it provides a buoyant source of revenue for county governments. The revenue is necessary, of course, to enable each county government to perform their functions as assigned by the county governments. Each of our county governments, Senator Mungatana, all senators actually that you can think of, I don't know of a county government that meets its own source revenue targets. Yet, if as a House, we do not take deliberate space and time to ensure that we guide our county governments by providing national legislation that will guide how this exercise is done across the country. We have tried it for 3 terms of the county governments, 2013 to 2017, 2017 to 2022, and presently. If you leave it to the talents or lack of the same of our various county governments to find ways of raising on-source revenue, Madam Speaker, then we know what the results are. We know that there are very few county governments that have grown their on-source revenue since the inception of devolution by an equation even similar to what the economic growth is. Many of them actually, Madam Speaker, to utter dismay of colleague senators and members of the public, have actually their source revenue sources dipping, despite the fact that people practice that applies across all the 47 counties. Don't leave it to your county governments alone, Madam Speaker. And that is a responsibility rating bill. It is my sincere hope that as a House we shall also reflect on what are the standards of collecting other forms of taxes on on-source revenue. Is there a way to standardize and ensure that there is legislation, such as the bill that is presently before the Finance and Budget Committee, of a unified system, Madam Speaker, of collecting these revenues, especially electronically, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you will recall that at the inception of this administration, when the President stuck to his guns and led the government in insisting that all government services must be paid via the e-citizen platform, there were all manner of hue and cry. But somehow, many of those noises have since disappeared. Either people have since learned that it is impossible to bully such an administration, or the Speaker that is determined on doing the right thing, sometimes, though sometimes not very popular, but the right thing in the long run. Therefore, we must also begin that conversation in ensuring that every of the taxes that are being levied and paid for by our people in our county governments, so that it becomes impossible, Madam Speaker, for people to pilfer these resources, that they are paid electronically, so that there is a trace, and they are paid using a system that is accountable from reputable firms, not having systems, Madam Speaker, that has what is colloquially referred to by governors a T-junction. A T-junction, Madam Speaker, means that from the source where the citizen is paying to the bank account of the county revenue fund, there is a T somewhere where there is a leakage, and the governor of that particular county has a chance to leak something small out of it. We need reputable firms, Madam Speaker. That's why we are providing it in legislation, so that we will provide the standards upon which, what are these companies that can provide? Is it even possible to have one system that applies across a county, controlled by the county governments? There's a very lazy argument, Madam Speaker, that is being peddled, that, oh, that is a clawback on devolution. If you have a system that is applied across all the 47 counties, what is the problem? What citizens want is for them to pay their taxes and to see those taxes being used prudently in their counties. Nobody is saying that you propose a system where those resources will come to the what is it called? To the national government kitty, Madam Speaker. But we want it to be traceable, verifiable, a means through which citizens know if a poor old lady that is selling esaga in Keumbu market, where Senator Omogeni comes from, pays her 20 shillings, Madam Speaker, as the market rates for the day, then that 20 shillings goes to the coffers of Nyamira County government, and it translates as service for her, so that we just don't collect taxes from ordinary citizens, Madam Speaker, and because a good number of it has been pilfered, then there is no commensurate service for the same. How many towns, how many centers, Madam Speaker, do you know that there are people from the county governments, for example, who collect taxes? But if you go to that town, you can't find even a toilet, Madam Speaker. You can't find sanitation facilities. Yet the county governments continue to collect taxes on that particular market, Madam Speaker. Therefore, that is why, as Senate, we must take the lead in this conversation. If you rely it and leave it to the imagination of our county governments alone, Madam Speaker, then we will be abetting our responsibility as the House that is charged with the responsibility of giving out legislation that enhances and entrenches devolution. And this is one such legislation, Madam Speaker. Article 2095 of our Constitution confers on us as Parliament the powers to regulate the exercise of fiscal responsibility by county governments, which is what I was just speaking about a few minutes ago. It is important to understand, Madam Speaker, that the fourth schedule of the Constitution, that in the fourth schedule of the Constitution, counties are charged with numerous functions and responsibilities. The imposition of property taxes on lands and buildings by county governments will be essential for generating local revenue to fund critical public services, infrastructure, and community development initiative. Above that, Madam Speaker, it also provides a fair and equitable means of taxation, ensuring that property owners contribute to the financing essential services in proportion to the value of their properties. Many strong institutions that have got the financial muscle are able actually to negotiate in colluding with land officers in the various counties, Madam Speaker, pay taxes less than what is due to them. Taxation must be fair, Madam Speaker. You must be taxed in an amount that is commensurate to the value of what you're holding and the benefit that you get from a county government, Madam Speaker. If you are charging a boda operator or a mamamboga, Madam Speaker, in a particular market, 20 or 50 shillings to operate in a particular market, then within the same market, somebody who has a wholesale or a supermarket, Madam Speaker, is simply being charged 500 shillings as license, or 1,000, or whatever amount, Madam Speaker, for the entire financial year, then it brings to fore the conversation about equity. Is it fair? Is it just? This provides the opportunity for us as a country to have this conversation and say that taxation by our various forms and arms of county government, Madam Speaker, is fair and can be traced, Madam Speaker. We have challenges. Those of us that have come from counties that have multinationals operating within them, Madam Speaker, where you find for an acre of land, the tea multinational estates, for example, for those of us that come from the tea growing areas, many of them up to date, the land rates that they pay are valuations of as late as 1994, Madam Speaker, when I was a 6-year-old boy. I have come to the Senate right now, and they're still paying that particular amount because of absence of such a law. That is why this is very personal to some of us, and we need to quickly pass this legislation, Madam Speaker, so that there is a standardized format determined and passed nationally here in the national government, so that counties are left to implement and collect the resources. And it's not left to the negotiations, Madam Speaker, because I know, for example, in the T subsector, when we go to meetings with them, they say, oh, we have agreed with this county government, but we didn't agree with the other. We don't want these back-end agreements. We want agreements, Madam Speaker, that can be verified, that can be scrutinized, and that can easily be traced back, Madam Speaker. Part 7, Madam Speaker, as I move towards a conclusion, Part 7 to 20 of this bill, Madam Speaker, contains provisions of the duty to levy rates by county governments and the principles they need to adhere, Madam Speaker, in accordance to PFM. It defines actually who the owner is, the mandate and the requirements of ensuring that the rates are paid. Of course, it even provides for forms of rating, the notice of rating, ratings track, the notice of rate, payments and remissions, discounts, waivers, enforcements of payment of rates, and so on and so forth, Madam Speaker. Basically, this is the engine of this particular legislation, providing for all what I have described earlier above. Clause 21 to 25 of the bill, Madam Speaker, provides powers, an appointment and powers of valuers, which provides the criteria for one to be appointed as a valuer and give responsibilities to this valuer, Madam Speaker, so that the chief government valuer, with respect to standardization and harmonization and preparation and implementation of the valuation of roles across our various counties, so that it's standardized. I think I've spent significant time explaining and giving context why it is important for us to have this standardized across all the counties. It need not be different from Kisumu and Kericho and Mombasa and all these other places. The chief government valuer sets in consultation with the county governments, Madam Speaker, so that the valuation role is standardized, Madam Speaker. I have given example that many counties, I know, for example, in my county, Senator Muma, as you drive towards Kericho town, all that land that you see and you admire and you take pictures from, the valuation role that is being used was last updated in 1994. That's why we are providing standardization of exercise, so that we know what is the frequency of updating the master valuation role with our various county government. Within what time should it be updated, so that the same can be done. There are property owners, for example, in your county of Kisumu, who on one file you find that the valuation for this business owner last reads the value for 1990. And for the next one, just next door, they have their property because maybe they recently purchased it, therefore it has a more recent value of 2023. Is that fair? It's not fair. And that's why the important proposal to have this standardized. Clause 26 to 36 of the bills, Madam Speaker, contain provision on the valuation rating. This part gives the general basis of valuation, declaration of rateable areas, methods to be used for valuation, Madam Speaker, preparation and contents of valuation roles, supplementary valuation together with the alteration. Publication of role, the objections thereof and exceptions are provided for in part. Uncontested draft valuation role and the draft supplementary valuation role are also provided for in clause 35 of the bill. Very important, as I mentioned. Clause 37 to 53 contains the provisions of the National Rating Tribunal, Madam Speaker. This part seeks to establish a tribunal with part-time members. The jurisdiction of the tribunal is specified under clause 39. The part also provides for the conduct of proceedings, the quorum, declaration of disclosure of interest, powers of the tribunal, remuneration, staff tribunal, penalty of failure to comply with tribunal's lawful order, appeal mechanisms from the tribunal. Madam Speaker, basically, this is setting up of the tribunal that will listen to these disputes. However, I am a bit concerned with the issues of tribunals. And it's good, as I say this, Senior Counsel Omogeni is here, and very many other lawyers are here. The reason we set up tribunals in our law is that it is expected that there will be the first court of reporting when there is a dispute. However, there is an emerging practice where judges, either in the High Court or magistrates, are listening to matters that have not even originally been dealt with at tribunal level, be it at the sports dispute tribunal, Madam Speaker. Political parties are also complaining about this, that there are many matters that you find a judge making a determination of a matter that has not even been dispensed or discussed at a particular tribunal. Environmental tribunal, Madam Speaker, exists, and you find petitioners quickly rush to the High Court for one reason or the other, and a judge makes pronouncements on this particular issue. Then why do we set up tribunals? The reason why we set up all these tribunals, Madam Speaker, is that it is believed that these little courts have got the known expertise on that particular field better than any other individual outside that particular jurisdiction, that they can be able to dispense and listen to the issues that are being canvassed and make the proper determination. Therefore, this is an area of serious concern, and I hope that the Chief Justice, together with those that serve in JSC, need to consider and properly perhaps issue guidelines to members of judiciary on the various tribunals, so that this particular tribunal that we are setting up does not suffer the fate like many of these tribunals that we have in the country that are often bypassed, Madam Speaker, by petitioners and who head to High Court and immediately get attention on their matters without first going through the set procedure. So Part 5, Madam Speaker, basically establishes the National Rating Tribunal that will hear and handle all those disputes. Part 6, Madam Speaker, of the bill are just miscellaneous provisions and notices of repeal of Cap 266 and 267, which is a guiding law, even as we speak today, on these matters of rating. And I don't know how old this particular law is, must be extremely old. Finally, Madam Speaker, Clause 56 of and 57 of the bill contains the proposed regulations and savings and transition of any written national and county laws relating to valuation, just to preserve. If there have been counties that have been diligent to set up their own national rating or county specific and valuation roles, Madam Speaker, then this bill actually proposes to save such and doesn't delete them. Therefore, with those very many remarks, I want to urge colleague senators to debate this bill and make critical addition and proposals on how to better it, because it is for the betterment of our county governments and to cure a challenge that is real and that all our 47 county governments continue to struggle with. With those many remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to move and request the Senator for Tana River, Senator Danson Buya Mungatana, to second.
Senator Mungatana, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, may I take this opportunity, Madam Speaker, to thank the majority leader, who is the mover of this bill, for very eloquently, in his usual style, explain this bill very well. And I know senators who are listening will agree with me that we are here in this bill to discuss about own source of revenue for the counties from where we come from. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, own source revenue has become a real big challenge, very big challenge, because many counties, including my county, we have not really had a law such as this that will allow proper access to funds from property taxes. Madam Speaker, even the more developed counties like Nairobi and Mombasa and Kisumu and Uasin Gishu, Madam Speaker, when you look at their collection of through the rating process, again, it is having a lot of challenge because the legal framework for collection, the standardization does not exist. And yet, Madam Speaker, property rating is one of the most fundamental ways and most reliable ways of making good the targets of on-source revenue. Madam Speaker, when we had the debate on the Finance Act. One of my relatives who lives in the US called me and told me, what is the big fuss about this? And as I was trying to explain, he told me, you know, in our state where we live, in one of the states in the US, we depend on property taxes to finance all our activities here. We are really focused on rating. That is what helps us to finance the activities within our own state. So they could not relate why we were having a big fight about the finance bill in this place. So this brings to fore, Madam Speaker, the question of rating, the question of on-source revenues for our counties. Madam Speaker, in our county, we are, I think, the third lowest when it comes to collection of on-source revenue, because we depend on, despite the fact that we have a very large area, landmass in Tana River County, we have not been able to benefit from rating that land, Madam Speaker. What we depend on, Madam Speaker, it is what you will collect from, you know, auctions from goats, from, you know, cows, from camels. Madam Speaker, very little revenue. And then they go to the markets also, very little revenue. Madam Speaker, the county government also becomes very rough sometimes, even before they have passed their own Finance Act. They go to bar owners, to shop owners within trading centers, and they tell them now this has increased, like they were doing in our headquarters in Hola. They tell the traders and the business people that we have increased the rates even before the Finance Act came into being, into effect. They then tell you if you are not paying, they are accompanied by the kanjo, and they actually put a padlock on your business premise. Madam Speaker, this practice shows the desperation and the problems of raising on-source revenue in my county, Tana River County. Madam Speaker, the answer to these problems is to increase the base upon which we can raise on-source revenue. And this act, the Rating Act that we are bringing, that standardizes how we shall collect charges from properties across the entire 47 counties, is going to be a great help to a county such as Tana River County. The reason I support this bill very much is because we don't need then to increase the taxes or the charges or the levies that is upon the businessman who is selling in his kiosk, who is selling in his bar, who is selling in his little supermarket. What Tana River County will now be doing, Madam Speaker, is to benefit from this act if we pass it into law, where the huge landmass is going to be rateable. And those huge investors who we welcome to our county will have a predictable rate at which they will be paying their levies every year when it is due for payment. Madam Speaker, we have huge irrigation schemes in Tana River County. Do they pay to the county government anything? No. Madam Speaker, we have huge programs that are coming, investors, private investors, Madam Speaker, who are supposed to be bringing investment, yes, and we welcome them, but who are also supposed to make a contribution to the county government. Are they paying? No, Madam Speaker. Why? Because the legal framework does not exist. Today, when we pass this Rating Act, Madam Speaker, we shall create a larger base for the counties, not just Tana River, but the rest of the counties in this nation, who will be able now to collect in an organized manner, in a structured manner. They will be able to collect the levies that are due, and they will increase the base. Madam Speaker, we know that there is a very serious problem of leakage of what county government collect. And we know, Madam Speaker, that even the little that they are collecting, like what the Honorable Majority Leader has said, there is something called the T-junction. When they collect the resource for the